first episode of The Secret Life of Songs, a podcast on the making and the meaning of classic pop records with me, Anthony, a musician who writes and performs music under the name Skycoloured. I wanted to express a certain way of listening to music, a way that tries to take in the whole of a record, its lyric, its musical material and arrangement, its performance, and its production, to get closer to what these famous songs might mean, which is to say, what they mean to me. It's an attempt that always fails. There's always more you can say about these songs, but I hope it'll be illuminating to see me try. It's intended to be for musicians and non-musicians alike, so I'll spend time along the way explaining bits of music theory where necessary, especially in the early part of the series, so we're all on roughly the same page when it comes to musical jargon. But don't worry too much if you don't follow every concept and term, as it's hopefully been done in a way that allows you to get a sense of each song regardless. This week, I'm going to be looking at the idea of home, among other things, in Sam Cooke's 1962 single, Bring It On Home to Me.
If you ever change your mind about leaving me behind, oh, bring it to me, bring your sweet loving, bring it on home to me, yeah.
Sam Cooke would have only a 7-year recording career as a solo artist before his death at the age of 33. But he produced a body of work which encompassed the entire development of the musical style that would come to be known as soul. From his roots as a young gospel star in the Soul Stirrers to his posthumously released civil rights masterpiece, A Change Is Gonna Come, his work is emblematic of the close, sometimes fraught relationship between the different threads of African American music of the mid-20th century. Bring It On Home to Me, recorded in April 1962, roughly in the middle of Cooke's short career, is a seminal recording in this story. It was his first original recording to consciously incorporate elements from gospel music, most notably the call and response yes at the culmination of each verse.
I know I laughed when you left, but I only hurt myself. Oh, bring it to me, bring your sweet loving, bring it on home to me, yeah.
When Renee Hall, the arranger from the original recording session, was describing the process of making the track, he said, "We were after the Soul Stirrers type thing, trying to create that flavour in an R&B setting." It was a moment in which Cooke and his team had successes behind them. They would have been confident enough to draw explicitly on the gospel tradition without fear of censorship from either their record label or the gospel music establishment, and to create pop music that not only fulfilled commercial obligations, but went further to express something more sincere, something truer to their lived experiences. One of the backing vocalists on the session, J.W. Fred Smith, said, "We felt that light shit wouldn't sustain him. We felt he needed more weight." That weight that Smith speaks of contains a great deal, and establishing what it might be requires an engagement with the roots of what the poet Amory Baraka called the blues continuum, the diverse musical tradition emerging in the 1940s and 50s, incorporating many styles and musical forms, but bound by a common origin, part actual, part mythical, in the blues. Cooke was away from home when the idea for Bring It On Home to Me first occurred to him. Driving between tour dates in Georgia in early 1962, Cooke had the idea of reworking the 1959 blues song I Wanna Go Home by Charles Brown.
I wanna go home, 'cause I feel so all alone. I wanna go home, I wanna go home, oh yes, I wanna go home.
Cooke would create a song that inverted the older song's idea of home. In the original, it's the singer who finds himself away from home and wants to get back, having been abandoned by his friends. It's a song of existential loneliness. No other person seems to exist for the singer, except perhaps us, the listener. One of Cooke's innovations was to insert a romantic drama into the song. So he longs for someone who's left him at a home it's implied they've made together. For the duration of the song at least, the prospect of reconciliation is held out, but it never comes. And to understand how Cooke achieves this musically, I'd like to look at the song a bit closer and talk about what musicians call tonality. In Western music, for nearly 500 years, tonality has been understood in terms of 7-note scales, the most common of which are the major and the minor. Harmony, which is the aspect of music that looks at simultaneous combinations of notes, chords in other words, and the relationships between chords, has most often been thought of as involving triads or regularly spaced 3-note chords, like this major triad, made up of a root note, a third, and a fifth. Triads can be built up on any note of the scale. And those chords form the basic harmonic building blocks of most classical and pop music. These building block chords are how we've thought about harmony for hundreds of years, and of the 7 possible basic triads, 3 stand out as particularly important. The first, unsurprisingly, is the chord starting on the first note of the scale, which we call chord 1, or the tonic. So in this key, C major, the tonic chord is C. Conventionally, pieces of music of the classical era and in pop start and end on the tonic, which is why it's often called the home chord. If we begin at home, where might we go out to? Well, in theory, we can go to any of the other degrees of the scale, but there are 2 chords which have conventionally formed the most typical destination to go out to and return from. They are the chords we form on the 4th and the 5th notes of the scale, sometimes called the subdominant on the 4th and the dominant on the 5th. Tonic, subdominant, dominant, tonic. Bring It On Home to Me, like many songs, uses only these chords. If you ever, that's a tonic, change your mind, dominant, about leaving, tonic, leaving me behind, subdominant, oh, tonic, bring it to me, dominant, bring your sweet loving, subdominant, dominant, bring it on home to me, tonic, subdominant, tonic, dominant. It's a brilliant example of how on such apparently simple harmonic foundations, something of great emotional power can be built. For it's not simply the choice of chords themselves that the interest is found, but in Cooke's handling of them, and in their relationship with the other elements of the track, starting with the most obvious other element, its melody. In general, a melody that will feel like it fits with its harmonic setting will use notes that coincide with those in the triad underpinning it. So let's say our chord is a C. If we have a melody built out of the root, third and fifth notes of that chord, which is C, E and G, will sound comfortable, cozy. But if we have a melody that only uses notes that do not fall in that chord, using notes that are in the scale of C major but not in the chord, it'll sound clashing or in some way unresolved. So attuned are we as listeners to this that we feel a moment of clash, followed by a moment of coincidence, as an emotional dynamic of tension, followed by relief. And it's from that basic principle that Cooke creates so much of his song's feeling of yearning.
I'll give you jewelry and money too, but that ain't all I'll do for you. Oh, bring it to me, bring your sweet love.
The song's melody is short, only 8 bars, and of those 8, Cooke begins 5 with a note that clashes with the accompanying chord. If you ever change your... This is the first one. Mind about... This is the second one. Leaving me behind. There's another one there. Oh, bring it to me. Bring your sweet... This is one here. Loving, bring it on home to me. That's the last one there. As you might have noticed, each time the melody clashes, it immediately resolves onto a note which does fit. This pairing of clashing note with resolved note is called a suspension, because you're suspending the relief of being embedded in the chord.
You know I'll always be your slave until I'm buried in my grave.
But it's not just the choice of notes in his melody and his chords that we can see Cooke building up the song's emotional drama. The song's structure, and especially the way the chords are distributed across the musical form, also plays a role. In the 8 bars of the song, the first 4 have 1 chord per bar. Ever change your mind about leaving me behind? At that point in the song, the rate of chord change doubles, and we find we have 2 chords in every bar. Bring it to me, bring your sweet love and bring it on home to me. It's not something you'd notice on first listen perhaps, but it's clear that this change in the harmonic rhythm produces, each time it happens, a sense of gathering momentum, of gearing up towards some sort of culmination, although it's a culmination that never quite arrives. To explain why, we need to look at another important convention of tonal music. As I said earlier, tonal music of the Western tradition typically begins and ends on the tonic chord, the home chord. So typical is this convention that a whole series of other harmonic conventions have arisen around it, common chord changes a songwriter will make to take music out of and then return it to the tonic chord, often involving, as I mentioned earlier, the 4th and 5th chords. Of these, by far the most common is a habit of returning to the tonic via the 5th, or the dominant. This can be called a 5-1 chord change, but it's commonly known as the perfect cadence, and it's immediately recognizable as the conventional end to many pieces of music, in both classical music and pop. So in this key it would be G to C like this. Or any piece of music that finishes like that is using a perfect cadence, the 5-1, 5-1. Bring It On Home to Me has no such final harmonic closure. Each verse ends on the dominant chord, that fifth chord, conventionally associated with leading us towards the tonic, leading us home. The sense of a yearning to return home, or for someone to come back home in Bring It On Home to Me, works through its constant raising and deferring of the prospect of perfect harmonic resolution. This device originates in the blues tradition. The classic 12-bar blues form also ends on the dominant, a residue perhaps of the fact that the blues was an oral tradition in which songs had no stable fixed state. Blues singers would typically improvise on a traditional song, expanding or contracting it as much as they wanted. Finishing on the dominant chord allows verses to flow into each other. I was going 1-4-1. The 4, this is the middle part of the 12 bars. This is like the last bit, we're going to go up to 5. That's 4. This is 1, but then there's the very recognisable kind of scoop back to the 5th at the end of the form. And then we're back to the beginning again. So just those last 4 bars again of a typical 12-bar blues. 5, 4. Or you might have 5 again. It's that very characteristic ending on the dominant at the end of the blues form. If you listen to an earlier song of Sam Cooke's, such as You Send Me, the verse ends up resolving to the tonic. The result is a sense of security, contentment, resolution.
Honest you do, honest you do. Oh, you thrill me, darling, you thrill me. I know you thrill me, honest you do.
And you'll hear him do a similar thing in her slightly later single called Cupid.
Nobody but me, Cupid, please hear my cry and let your arrow fly straight to my lover's heart for me.
So you can hear there that resolving into the tonic, the home chord at the end of the form, and it's something that he does as well in the famous 1960 single Wonderful World.
Don't know much about the French I took, but I do know that I love you, and I know that if you loved me too, what a wonderful world this would be.
Bring It On Home to Me, in many respects, Cooke's first attempt to reintegrate some of the blues and gospel traditions he grew up with, rediscovers this key bluesy harmonic device, using the musical metaphor of the home chord, so that the listener feels the pull towards it, while simultaneously sensing how its final, emphatic return will never be achieved.
Oh, bring it to me, bring your sweet loving, bring it on home to me, yeah.
How else did Cooke add weight to the music of Bring It On Home to Me? The most obvious aspect would be in the use of his voice and the vocal arrangement. If you hear this tune alongside an earlier song of his, like You Send Me or Cupid, you'll hear how Cooke relished throwing aside some of his patented, honeyed singing style in Bring It On Home to Me, cutting loose and accessing his voice's harder, grittier tones. The take on the record is only the second take from the studio session, and the only change that Cooke made between those takes was to replace a choir of backing singers in the first take with just a single male singer Lou Rawls on the second. The two singers' voices are left bare, deliberately unblended, and both singers seem to be given free rein to embellish the melody, so that the performance lends the track a roughness, specifically designed to signal sincerity, as opposed to the smooth oohs and ahs of the backing section in previous Cooke pop recordings, and indeed in contrast to other popular male singing duos of the era like the Everly Brothers, where the focus is on a perfect seamless blend. This performative looseness also applies to the lyrics, as in the freely interchangeable use of honey and baby, as opposed to the darling of the earlier recordings. While much of the lyrical content is fairly conventional pop song formula from the period, the opening couplet in verse 2, "I know I laughed when you left, but now I know I only hurt myself," feels original to me and contributes to the track's deliberate roughness through that half-rhyme of left and myself. The lasting appeal of the song seems finally to lie in its expression of doubt. You can feel it in those big gaps in the melody, as well as that interaction of melody and harmony that never gives the listener the full experience of musical home and the unresolved nature of its harmonic structure. They all capture the sense of a dawning realization. Whoever the song is addressed to may never come home. The weight of the musical traditions that Cooke begins to draw on here, later to be fully expressed in A Change Is Gonna Come, allows Cooke in this song to go beyond the cozy pop sentiment of the likes of You Send Me and express something more open-ended, more plausibly reflecting real life. Often, the fade-out at the end of a pop recording feels lazy, but in this case, it feels appropriate. Any end expressing resolution would jar with the spirit of the song. There's a sense the singer will continue calling for his baby to come home, long after the music has faded, perhaps forever.